The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 146. Coach Hoke brings home his second consecutive top 10 recruiting class, and Coach Beeline and the boys get ready for the Big Ten home stretch. That and more on today's show. This is the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Coach Brady Hoke had a big smile on his face last Wednesday at his National Signing Day presser, and well, he should have. The Wolverines brought home their second consecutive top 10 class and, most importantly, met all of their needs. On today's show, we'll have part one of our 2013 recruiting wrap-up shows. We'll take a look at the 15 commitments we expect to be seen on the offensive side of the ball. Our guest will be Coach Brown from the Michigan recruiting site, the M Block. So that's right around the corner on Michigan Gameday. Saturday, Michigan was 2.4 seconds away from their first win at Madison since 1999. All they needed was a foul on the inbounds pass, and it was over. That didn't happen, and the Badgers made them pay with a miracle half-court three and then pulled it out in overtime. As we finalize this week's show, the Wolverines are in action at the Breslin Center against the first-place Spartans. A top 10 matchup that could and should go a long way in determining this year's Big Ten champion. After tonight, there are only 6 regular season games left, and the big ones are at home. It should be a tense and exciting home stretch for Michigan basketball. Coach Barnes-Arico and the ladies have hit a few bumps on the road during the last few weeks, but bounced back big this past weekend with an upset victory over number 13 Purdue in West Lafayette. They'll have the rest of this week to get ready for a big home game Saturday against arch rival Michigan State. Last week, it looked like Coach Red Berenson's team might be poised for another one of their special February runs. That hope vanished in South Bend over the weekend as they were swept by the Fighting Irish. This week, they stay on the road with a weekend set in Columbus against the Buckeyes. Softball got the season off to a great start by taking 3 of 4 down in Tampa at the USF tournament. They'll be back down in sunny Boca Raton this weekend to compete in the FAU Kickoff Classic. Baseball gets their season underway this weekend with a 3-game set against Cal out in Berkeley, California. For college football fans, the first Wednesday in February has a big X on the calendar. It just gets bigger and bigger every year. So does the pressure on these coaches to haul in the best 18-year-old student athletes that they can track down. The class of 2013 is in the bag, and the critics agree that Michigan's class is one of the very elite. Today on part one of our recruiting wrap-up shows, we'll break down the 15 Wolverine commits that are expected to be used on offense. Wolverine recruiting expert Coach Brown from the M Block will join us in just a moment with his take on these future Wolverines. Here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. Here on Michigan Game Day today, it is part one of our National Signing Day shows. As I mentioned last week, really the last couple of years, we've let the dust settle. We haven't had a National Signing Day show on that actual day. What we like to do, and it seems to work out best, is to 1 week take a look at our offensive commitments, and then the next week the defensive commitments and other athletes, other categories. But anyway, this week it's the offensive side of the ball. And to join us is Coach Brown from one of the excellent Michigan recruiting sites and more, as it says on the site. It is the M Block at www.themblock.com. Coach Brown, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, as we learned on Wednesday, it was a huge signing day for Michigan, the second consecutive top 10 class for Coach Hoke. And even though it fell a bit, you can't say enough good things about this class, can you, Coach Brown?
You really can't. I mean, they have some things that they need to fill after the previous coaching regime, and I think the last 2 years they've done a pretty good job of that, of addressing the holes and the needs that they have. So they definitely have a goal in mind, and you can see the way that they offer and the way that they signed out and finished the class on Wednesday.
Well, Coach Brown, let's start with the guys in the trenches, and this was a very elite group that Coach Brady Hoke and his staff brought in. Let's start with Kyle Bosch. He's one of the big boys, 6'5", 311 pounds, from St. Francis High School in Wheaton, Illinois. Big guy.
Yeah, he's a big guy. Really cool attitude. I've talked to him several times. He was one of the more vocal kids when I was, getting to know some of these guys throughout the recruiting process. And he came in as an early enrollee, so he's been there about a month now, and maybe the most college-ready kid out of the group. He's got the size already, obviously at 310-plus pounds. A lot of people think that he could crack the two deep as a true freshman just because of that size, and he's actually pretty polished for a high schooler. And being an early enrollee, he'll have a lot of time to learn some more technique type stuff and hit the weight room and get used to the processes ahead of the other freshmen that aren't there yet.
And he's another one of these kids. I mean, we all look at the stars. That's on every site. Every recruiting service has them. He's one of these 4 or 5-star guys, depending on where you look. But I like to look at who was recruiting him, and he was way up there for Alabama, Notre Dame, Wisconsin. So he's a big timer.
Yeah, definitely. If you've got interest from Wisconsin, I mean, we all know the kind of linemen that they put out every year. Might change a little bit now that Beelan was gone, but if they're getting attention from those guys, the Notre Dames, Wisconsin, Alabama, that's saying something. Then he chose the Wolverine, so that's a good thing.
Well, our next player is David Dawson. He's a local kid from Detroit Cass Tech High School who also was one of the early commits and then thought about decommitting. I guess we don't know really what he was thinking, but he's 6'4", 282 pounds, and when it was all said and done, he's a Wolverine.
Yeah, he had one of the more interesting recruiting processes. He was committed pretty early and then decommitted, and while he was decommitted, he was pumping up Ohio State and pumping up Michigan State and taking trips to Alabama. And whatever happened between him and the coaches, they sat down with him again and thought he was still worthy of an offer, even though he might not have went about it the right way. But he's went through a lot. He's had some tragedy in his family, and I think for a kid, any kid, dealing with all that, that's not being recruited by some of the biggest programs in the nation. It's a lot to handle. And like you said, at the end of the day, he still was a Wolverine, and I think he's going to be one of the elite guards. Depending on which site you look at, he's anywhere from the top to the top 3 or 4 guards in the country.
Well, next on our list is one of these guys who has come from a great background, NFL pedigree, coaching background, Patrick Kugler, another one of the big boys at 6'5", 280 pounds, played his high school ball at North Allegheny High School, Wexford, Pennsylvania. He looks like the real deal, too.
He definitely does. Like you said, his background, his dad was the offensive line coach for the Steelers. He actually got the head coaching position at UTEP during the recruiting process, I think. Coach's son, you usually expect good things as far as work ethic and the knowledge of what it takes to be successful. He's kind of a character. I haven't talked to him a lot, but he's kind of got this funny guy appearance off the field, but is very, very nasty on the field, maybe too nasty, even some have said. I know he got this little reputation while he was at the Under Armour Week for definitely playing up and through the whistle, which, I'm okay with as a lineman. So he's another one that, they figure could. I think he's looking at maybe even playing some center, maybe guard, but he's another one that might find his way into the rotation pretty early on, depending on his, his weight gain maybe a little bit.
And he has a brother at Purdue, Robert, doesn't he right now, Coach Brown?
That is true, yeah. He's got another Big Ten brother, so again, the pedigree is there. if you've got a dad that's coaching the NFL players, you'd think that the boys would know a little bit about it too, and it seems that they do.
The next offensive lineman is named Dan Samuelson, 6'5", 275. He's from Plymouth High School in Plymouth, Indiana. Was originally a Nebraska commit and then flipped to Michigan, another very highly regarded player.
He came into the picture a little later on, actually, so he was one of those guys I didn't know a ton about throughout the process, and then his name kind of popped up for taking a visit, and his offer list isn't going to wow anybody, but he's had rave reviews from coaches, opposing coaches in high school about, again, same kind of thing, kind of a nasty streak going up and through the whistle. Big, strong kid. The other coaches have been quoted as saying they had to game plan around him, which is a little unique for an offensive lineman. But, another 6'5", 275-pounder probably looks like a guard. The tough thing with him is he's coming in as one of the lesser-ranked guys, and with all these other elite players, he's going to have a battle to get in the starting lineup at some point. But, he's proven that he's got that tenacity and the work ethic to definitely try to do that. It's just a phenomenal line haul, and he's just another part of it.
You're right. It is a phenomenal line haul, and it even gets better. We've got Chris Fox also, who is on board, 6'6", 297 pounds. He comes to us out of Ponderosa High School in Parker, Colorado, and a very dominant, very strong run-blocking kid.
Yeah, he was, I believe, the top player in Colorado, so that's, good when you can go that far away from home and pull a kid in like that. Obviously, Colorado's program is a little down. He had an offer from them. He had an offer from Ohio State, and so he was getting attention from some of the big boys, too. He's a mauler, like you said, a prolific run blocker. At 6'6", 300 pounds, probably a tackle. And he's coming off of a knee injury, so you'd think that a red shirt's probably in the cards for him in 2013, just to get completely healthy. He had to sit out of the Army All-American game because of that. But, really high praise on him, and he figures to probably be a starter definitely by sophomore, junior season.
We had 6 offensive linemen that Coach Hoke brought in this year. The last of those is another bruiser, Logan Tooley Tillman, 6'7", 307 pounds. He's out of Manual High School in Peoria, Illinois. He had offers in hand from Alabama, Ohio State, USC, another very dominant run-blocking type of a high school player.
Yeah, he's kind of looked at more of as a project maybe. He carried some bad weight early on in the process at some camps and stuff like that. But 6'7", 6'8", over 300 pounds, you can't teach that. And he's got long arms, he's got long legs, quick feet. He was one of the very first kind of more highly rated prospects that I had a chance to talk with, and I thought that was really cool early on when I started up the site. And he actually did a video shout out for me saying, come to check out the site. It's Coach Brownie's school, which was really cool of him. And he's another early enrollee, so he's been on campus and hopefully, honing those skills that go along with his natural size and strength and the long arms and things like that. So he's got the potential to be maybe the best of the bunch just because of his size and athleticism, but he's going to have to work a little bit to get his technique up where it needs to be.
Okay, so as a group, these 6 offensive linemen that we brought in, it's most of the services have said that everyone considers this an elite group. This has to be, as a group of offensive linemen, the best that Michigan has brought in over a decade. Would you agree?
I think I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, you look at the kind of, you can't look at the stars all the time, but when you've got that many kids that are rated that high by so many people that do it, even if you miss on one of them, you're going to have 4 or 5 really good ones, there. And I think the future is super bright for the offensive line.
Next, let's take a look at our 2 tight end commits. The first of those is Jake Budd, a kid who grew up big-time Ohio State fan, 6'6", 235 pounds. He went to North Pickerington High School, Pickerington, Ohio. He's a kid that they say needs a little work on the receiving end, needs to add some bulk, but he has very good hands, too.
Yeah, he's an athletic kid, big kid, 6'6", 235, like you said, and kind of a traditional, not really an elite pass catcher, not a phenomenal blocker, but good at both. And he's going to come in with good size, and he was the leading receiver for his high school team, and another really personable kid. I've been able to talk with him a lot throughout the process. Another early enrollee, so he's been on campus and kind of Actually just talked with him the other day. He's 100% now. He was also held out of the All-American game with an ankle injury, so he's back up and doing 7-on-7s and things like that, getting some chemistry there. And with the tight end spot needing some depth, he may find himself on the field in the fall, even though he is a little undersized right now, maybe in kind of a similar role to what they used Funchess for, another big, tall, athletic kid to just be another threat from the offensive line area.
Well, the other tight end, Coach Brown, that we brought in is a very athletic player, Khalid Hill. He's 6'2", 230 pounds, out of Detroit East English Village. He was a Wolverine commitment early and grew up a Michigan fan. A lot of folks compare him to a Kevin Koger type player, number 10 on the Detroit News blue chip list. Another solid tight end prospect.
Yeah, he's got some like you said, his athleticism working for him. He's not the elite size that you might look for in a tight end, but he's good with the ball in his hands. In-state kid, you always like getting those kids that are a fan of the school before they even get there. And he could surprise a lot of people. He didn't have a real big offer list, and again, with that depth issue at tight end, he may find himself in the mix a little earlier than some might expect. But over the last couple of years, kids like A.J. Williams, really, really big tight end, and then you mix in Funchess and Butt, and then Hill also. They've got some interesting pieces at tight end moving forward.
Here on the show today with us is Coach Brown from the outstanding Michigan recruiting site, the M Block, at www.themblock.com. Today, Coach Brown is joining us on part one of our recruiting wrap-up shows. We're just talking about the offensive side of the ball, and we've just taken a look at the 6 outstanding offensive linemen that signed and also the 2 tight ends. Coach, let's take a look now at the wide receivers. This was an area that a lot of people have been concerned about. The first kid I'd like to get your take on is Demario Jones. He's 6'2", 185, came out of Westland John Glenn High School. We know about him up here. Came in at number 11 on the Detroit News blue chip list. Had originally committed to Central Michigan. Really just moved to Michigan before his junior year. When people talk about him, including coaches that have seen him, they talk about his potential.
He's a kid that early on some people thought, he's another kind of mid-level kid, in-state guy, obviously, and weren't all that excited about him. And then towards the end of his recruiting process, after he was committed to Michigan, he was starting to get looks from, Alabama and Florida State and Georgia, UCLA, some big-time programs, and all of a sudden everybody's thinking maybe he's better than what we originally thought. And, that's kind of a testament to the coaches, again, doing their evaluations and, hopefully uncovering those diamonds in the rough. But he's got great speed, good in the open field, pretty good size at 6'2". He may end up being the best receiver in this class, even though he's not as big as the other guys. But a lot of people are really excited about him, and he's kind of demonstrated that he wants to be special. I mean, he really wants to be that guy on the offensive side.
Yeah, he's one of these players, Coach Brown, that a lot of people around here who saw him, well, they know he ran in a Westland John Glenn offense. There was a run-heavy offense. Really didn't showcase his abilities very much. But, of course, he went to some of the camps up here, to the Michigan camps. So Coach Hoke and his staff knew about him. But, yeah, they say he is one very athletic kid. And there was a sleeper that came out of John Glenn High School about 25 years ago that not too many people talked about on the national scene, but he turned out to be a pretty good back. Tony Bowles played at the same high school, and a lot of people say the same thing. Demario Jones could be that kind of guy, but we will have to wait and see. But he's a nice pickup. One of the other wide receiver commits, another kid that has more of that NFL body, I think Coach Hoke and Coach Borges want, and that's Jaron Dukes, 6'4", 197. He's out of Marion Franklin High School, Columbus, Ohio. So another catch right from Buckeye land there. Really only offers from Illinois and Toledo.
Mm-hmm. He's, you look at the size, obviously that's attractive, 6'4", right around 200 pounds. But, yeah, the offer list doesn't really jump out at you. The recruits that were brought in the 2012 class in Chesson and Darbo couldn't get on the field. You probably think Dukes isn't quite ready yet either, but you've got to like that size. Michigan's definitely recruiting those big-bodied receivers and those quarterbacks with big, strong arms to throw it down the field to him. And he's shown some ability to high point the ball, as you'd expect, being as tall as he is. But another kind of under the radar kid, going to take a little time to develop at the next level, and the jury's kind of out on him still a little bit, but you've got to like it and be intrigued by his size.
Well, the third wide receiver that we inked is pretty much in that category too. Kusante York, another one of those long bodies, 6'3", 185 pounds. Harper Woods Chandler, Parker Academy High School, Harper Woods, Michigan. 76 catches, 22 touchdowns the last 2 seasons. Number 13 on the Detroit News blue chip list. Great three-sport athlete. Had offers from Bowling Green and Toledo. But last year his Nike camp performance in Columbus is what got Michigan's attention. Another very athletic kid under the radar.
Kind of seeing a trend here with these receivers a little bit. Another tall kid at 6'3". He's long. He's got good speed. He's pretty raw. He's excels on the basketball court as well, so he's got that athleticism. Again, probably needs some time to develop. I don't think, you never know, we could get a surprise. He might just burst onto the scene, but I think, behind some of the other recruits that they've got in the past year, and even in this class, probably not one that we'll see in 2013. But, you like those raw kids with long frames and good speed down the line. He could turn into a very good receiver.
Right now, let's take a look at our running backs. And, of course, any of us who have watched the Wolverines for the last couple of years have known between injuries and just problems on that offensive line, it's been tough. We just haven't had anyone that's jumped out and grabbed the lead at the running back positions. And Coach Borges wants to run, as we know, and Coach Hoke, a power pro-style offense. And these running backs that he's brought in pretty much fit the bill there. The first of which I'd like to get your take on, Coach Brown, is Devion Smith. Not even sure how you pronounce that first name, to tell you the truth. 5'11", 218 pounds. He's out of Howland High School, Warren, Ohio. Coveted running back. A lot of schools wanted him. I guess some recruiting services saw him as an under-the-radar type of a kid, too, but very physical between the tackles. He's got good speed. From the video I've seen on him, really good balance, too.
Yeah, he's a solid kid. At under 6 foot, but right around 220 pounds. That's definitely the kind of build I think the coaches want to use at running back. Had an Ohio State offer. So another in-state kid that chose to come up north and come to Michigan. And like you said, the issues at running back with not really having that go-to guy everybody thought Fitz would be the answer this year, and that didn't really work out. And then he goes and gets injured towards the end of the season. So in 2013. Devion Smith, he might factor in. It's hard to say right now. There's kind of a logjam at the running back position with unproven kids, and then Toussaint coming off that leg injury, Justice Hayes not really being the exact type that they're looking for. Rawls, another young unproven guy. So there's a lot of question marks in the backfield right now, but there looks to be some promise and good possible options in the fall. And Devion Smith might find himself in that mix. I think a lot of people were happy with him as the running back that we got in this class, but then obviously towards the end of the cycle we had another addition. Yeah,
we'll get to him in just a minute. The other guy who I've seen enough of to really like is Wyatt Shulman. He's a fullback, 6'3", 245, played in the very tough Detroit Catholic League for Detroit Catholic Central. Also a defensive line starter for the Shamrocks for 3 seasons, but we expect him to play fullback for the Wolverines. Had a bit of a hamstring injury his junior year, tweaked it again last fall, which somewhat limited his play at fullback. But he is the prototypical power H-back fullback, isn't he?
He is. He's an intriguing prospect. He's big. He actually runs very well for someone his size. Obviously at 6'3", 245, he's not a blazing fast runner, but he does okay in the open field. He's got great body lean. Knows how to go forward and get the dirty yards, and this is another position where there's some young guys playing fullback, and so Shulman's got a chance to come in, and he's bigger than the other guys, a little more stretched out than the other fullbacks on the roster. He's got good athleticism for someone his size, and we know that Hoke likes the man ball, if you want to call it that, and I think he could definitely play a role in that. At the fullback position, and maybe, like you said, H-back, split him out a little bit. It's got some versatility, so he's an intriguing kid.
We haven't seen a fullback like this recruited in quite a few years, have we?
That's true. Last year they brought in, I'll probably butcher his name, but Sion Huma from Utah, and he played a little bit on special teams, and not nearly as big as Shulman. And then you've got Carriage, who did pretty well this year, kind of supplanted Hopkins, but yeah, you've got to like a kid like Shulman who's used to the position. That's what he was brought in for. He knows his role. He knows what he's going to be asked to do. And like I said, I think he'll factor in. He's already big enough to play. Just a matter of learning the system and making sure he knows what to do back there.
You got to like the fact that we all of a sudden look a lot better at the fullback position too, with some guys that were born to play fullback. The last of our backs, which you alluded to a moment ago, was Derek Green, late commit, of course, but who cares? 6 foot, 220 pounds, out of Hermitage High School in Richmond, Virginia. In the last couple of weeks, we've read a lot about him, seen a lot of video on him. Considered the #1 high school back in the country this year. He is the real deal.
Definitely. I think, he was the last kid added to the class, and I think everybody was fine with waiting for him. He's big, he's strong, he's really fast. He doesn't dance in the hole. He is the back. I mean, if Brady Hoke and Coach Borges could grow one in a lab, I think this would be the kid. He's just got everything that they're looking for, and you bring in the #1 back, again, depending on which service you look at, but you bring in a kid this highly touted who had offers from everybody. I don't know how you don't give him some, substantial playing time as a freshman. And again, with who knows how healthy Fitz is coming back, or even how effective he is. If you look back to how he played last year, I think Derek Green's going to be fully in the mix to be the starting running back.
You mentioned when you watch him on video, when he hits the hole, he hits at full speed. When he cuts full speed. He does not stop in the hole, something we've seen from a lot of these Michigan backs the last few years, and he can make yards on his own. We thought Thomas Rawls might be, that kind of back. Maybe. Thomas might develop more in the next year or two, but right now he hasn't been that kind of back. This guy is the complete package, from tackle to tackle inside and then busting it outside. Fundamentally, he is just very sound for a young guy coming out of high school.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I'd be shocked if he doesn't get a strong look to be the main guy in the fall. And, with that kind of size, that kind of speed, like you said, in between the tackles, around the edge, catching passes out of the backfield, he definitely has the body for pass blocking. I don't think there's any doubt that he'll get a strong look to be the guy in 2013.
Well, Coach Brown, the last guy on our list was the first on Michigan's list, Shane Morris, quarterback, 6'3", 183 pounds, out of Warren De La Salle High School. He was the first commit in this class. It seemed like he was 14 when he committed. It seems, so long ago. I mean, when he committed, I almost thought, wow, isn't this a little too early to get a commit from a kid like this? But in the ensuing years, we saw him at the camps. We heard about him. He was one of the biggest recruiting aides for Coach Hoke and his staff in getting a lot of these other kids to come on campus. But then in the last year, he suffered mononucleosis, which set him back during his senior campaign. And at some of those camps, the elite camps last summer, his star sort of fell a bit, but he still looks to be that big-arm, pro-style quarterback that is perfect for what Coach Borges and Coach Hoke want to do.
Yeah, you mentioned his sickness in the senior year and, a little inconsistency at some camps and things like that, but there's no doubt about it. He's elite with his arm strength. He's big. He's only going to get bigger. He'll probably, end up at somewhere 6'4", 6'5", 210, 215, which is perfect build for that offense. And, the arm strength is as good as anybody in the country. He did struggle a bit with his accuracy. He'd go to these camps and you'd hear reports about, some inconsistent throws and not knowing when to take some off of it. And that's all, coachable. And so I think he's the future of the team, of the offense. He's hopefully, maybe we'll have 2 years to be in the weight room and to learn the offense and the system, as Gardner plays this season for sure. And depending on if he gets that nickel red shirt, Shane probably would have another year behind him. But I don't think there's any doubt that he's kind of the golden boy right now. He's had that kind of following. As you said, he's been committed for so long, brought a lot of guys with him. He's kind of the face that you'd want representing your team as your quarterback.
Do you put too much stock or any stock in the fact that he started to drop in the fall? I mean, we knew he had the mononucleosis, but it seemed like coming into the season, the scouting services were a bit more enamored with the dual threat run-pass quarterbacks, and he started to drop off a bit, didn't he?
Well, we know everybody looks at that. I'm sure Shane's fully aware, and probably, hopefully that's not a hit to his confidence. But it's hard to maybe rate a kid that high when you don't have a lot to go off of for his senior season. And he did have some camps where he wasn't the best quarterback there, and I don't think anybody would argue that. Maybe the best arm strength, but there's a lot of other things that quarterbacks have to do besides throw the ball hard. And he's probably got some areas that he's got to work on with that. But I don't put a lot of stock in that. I think he's got all of the tangible tools to be great. He's a smart kid. It's about his mentality comes in. How hard is he going to work, and how much does he want it? And we'll see that pretty soon. Maybe redshirt sophomore season if he does play 2 years behind Devin. I think he definitely would probably redshirt in 2013, but you never know. Maybe he shows up in the fall and that arm strength is undeniable, and he's the second best quarterback on the team. Who knows?
When National Signing Day, Coach Brown came last week, Michigan was anywhere from the number 1 recruiting class in the country to number 6. It's just sort of amazing how these different services have them spread out like this. But a lot of fans had emailed me and said they were disappointed that they had fallen off in the top 10 to maybe 5, 6, 7, or 8. But, I tell them, look at this recruiting class. Look at where the needs were.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach Hoke and Coach Borges more than addressed those needs and have stockpiled for the second consecutive year players where we need them.
Yeah, I think that's you hit it on the head with the needs. I mean, they maybe with the exception of what we would say an elite wide receiver, but I think they've got some promising prospects there. But the offensive line obviously was one of the big areas they wanted to hit. They brought in the quarterback of the future to learn for a year, at least a year, possibly 2. They went out and got that crown jewel stud running back with 2 other very capable backs, and I think they've got everything that they wanted to get. I don't think the coaches would say that there's a hole in this class. I really don't. I don't see one. They're probably, just by the way it looks, they're pretty pleased with the recruiting classes in 2012 and 2013, and they've reached out to some of the best, most highly coveted players in the whole country for 2014. And so I think they're pleased with the depth that they're building and the talent and the kind of kids that they're bringing in. And so in 2014 they can be a little more choosy, and they kind of have to be because the class is going to be considerably smaller than what it's been the last 2 years. So I think that's something that's pretty evident by the offers they've given out.
Well, on today's show, we've been looking at our offensive commitments from the class of 2013, an outstanding class that it was. And helping us to do that today was Coach Brown from one of our great Michigan recruiting sites, the M Block. Check it out. I invite you at www.themblock.com. Coach Brown does a fantastic job. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show and talk with us, and we hope to get you back on soon. And the next time we'll probably talk about 2014 recruiting, which, as you just mentioned, is well underway.
It definitely is, and I really appreciate it. Like I said, this is a joy for me. I could talk about this stuff all day long, so I really enjoyed it. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you, Coach Brown.
Thank you.
Coming up next is Wolverine Quick Hits here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GVMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. On Wolverine Quick Hits today, for the second time this season, Mitch McGarry was named Big Ten Freshman of the Week on Monday by the Big Ten office. McGarry opened the week with a career-best 14-point and 4-steal performance against Ohio State. Then in Saturday's overtime loss in Madison, he had 12 points and 8 boards. The Wolverines will be back home on Sunday to entertain Penn State at Chrysler Center. Game time is set for 12 noon Eastern Time. Michigan hockey scored 4 goals or more for the third straight game, but suffered a 6-4 defeat at the hands of number 12 Notre Dame on Saturday in front of a sellout crowd at Compton Family Ice Arena in South Bend. The Wolverines fought back with a late second-period power play goal from Phil DiGiuseppe at 19:26 to cut the Irish lead to 4-2. But the Irish scored at 47 seconds and 1:38 to put the game out of reach. The Wolverines are now off until they play Ohio State in Columbus on Friday at 6:35 p.m. The game will be broadcast on the Big Ten Network. Michigan now 10-18-2 overall, 7-15-2 in the CCHA, and their playoff hopes have all but faded away. Michigan women's basketball team used 3 6-pointers from senior guard Kate Thompson and a double-double by senior forward Nia Jordan to upset number 13 Purdue 67-56 Sunday afternoon inside Mackey Center. The Wolverines hit 9 of 17 shots from behind the arc and had a 34-24 rebounding advantage for their first win at Purdue since 1998 and their 7th road win of this season. Thompson was one three-pointer away from a season high as she went 6 of 13 from three-point range and 4 of 5 from the free throw line for 22 points. She also had 4 rebounds and 3 assists in the victory. Jordan had 16 points and 11 rebounds for her second double-double in the last 3 games and 4th of the season. Senior forward Rachel Sheffer had 8 points and 6 boards, while senior guard Jenny Ryan added 7 points and tied a season high with 9 assists. Michigan used its 34 rebounds to score 14 second chance points. They were 21 of 46 from the floor, hit 16 of 23 free throw attempts, and scored 22 points in the paint. The Wolverines return to action this Saturday, hosting Michigan State as part of the Chrysler Dedication Weekend. Tip-off is slated for noon and will be broadcast on the Big Ten Network. Michigan now 18-6 overall, 7-4 in the Big Ten. Sophomore Sarah Dreisinger turned in a 5-strikeout complete game shutout to carry the University of Michigan softball team, rated number 15 in the country this week, to a 4-0 victory over the Samford Bulldogs Sunday at the USF tournament held at USF Softball Stadium in Tampa. Dreisinger did not walk a batter and scattered 6 hits over 7 innings. The Maize and Blue defense provided good support behind her. In the second inning of a scoreless game, and with a Samford runner at first, senior third baseman Amy Knapp fielded a high chopper and cut down the lead runner at second with a strong throw to prevent her from moving into scoring position. The Wolverines made 2 fine defensive plays in the 5th while protecting a 1-run lead. Freshman shortstop Sierra Romero charged a short hopper and just beat the runner to first with a precise throw. When Samford did put a runner on with a single in the 5th, junior catcher Caitlin Blanchard from Petersburg, Michigan, Summerfield High School, threw her out with a few feet to spare on an attempted steal. The Michigan offense collected 9 hits on the day, led by Dreisinger, Blanchard, and Knapp, who each had 2 hits and 1 run batted in. Michigan finished the USF tournament with a 3-1 record, beating Marshall, Florida Atlantic, and Samford. The lone loss came to number 12, USF. The Maize and Blue will resume play this Saturday in the FAU Kickoff Classic in Boca Raton, Florida, against Toledo at 11 a.m. and LIU Brooklyn at 1 p.m. The Wolverines will also play twice on Sunday against Maryland at 9 a.m. and Massachusetts at 11 a.m. So again, the Wolverines off to a great start this season, 3-1, rated number 15 in the country, heading into this weekend's action. Baseball gets their season started out in sunny California. They'll play the University of California at Berkeley in a 3-game set beginning this Friday. Thanks again to our guest today, Michigan recruiting analyst Coach Brown from the M Block. If you want to stay up to date on who the Wolverines are recruiting, visit www.themblock.com. Coach Brown does a great job year-round keeping Michigan fans up to speed on the recruiting wars. You can also follow Coach Brown on Twitter. His handle is CoachBrown3. Next week, we'll be joined by another outstanding recruiting analyst, Asan Bender from MGO Blog, and we'll discuss the 11 defensive commitments on part 2 of our 2013 recruiting wrap-up shows, so don't forget to join us for that. Also a reminder to sign up for membership here at GBMW. Visit www.gbmwolverine.com and sign up today. Right now we have great player profiles on the 2013 commits and, of course, the latest on Michigan basketball and hockey. It only takes a minute to sign up and start enjoying the benefits of being a member. Check us out at www.gbmwolverine.com. Also, if you get the show from iTunes, please give us a review. Good, bad, or indifferent, it really doesn't matter. Just take a minute to tell iTunes what you think. That's going to do it for today's show. Once again, thank you for joining us. And don't forget to come back next week for part 2 of our 2013 recruiting wrap-up show. Until then, I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Take care, have a great week, and as always, go blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man Podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!